So thanks you all again for being with me today. That's pleasure.
Yes.
So, where did the monarch go? I moved to Michigan with my family, wife and son at the time, from the Bay Area, San Francisco, to Gaylord, Michigan, in about 1993-ish, something like that. Needless to say, there was some culture shock involved there.
Yeah.
Never lived in any place where you ran into the same people every day. Everybody knew what was going on. There was a woman that I worked with, was practicing a chiropractor with my brother-in-law. He was a chiropractor too. And there's a health food store attached to the clinic, and it was managed by this woman, and she kind of knew everything about everybody. She was like the gossip, the town gossip. I called her the Gaylord News Bureau, basically. But so it was something else to be up there. At one point, I'd learned about, in Grayling, Michigan, there's a state park, Hartwick Pines State Park. It's an old growth forest. If you notice when you're driving up north and you look at the trees, the forest as you're driving, most of them are, the trees are planted in rows. They're cultivated basically, right? And so that's not old growth forest. That's put there for harvesting. So at Hartwick Pines, it's an old growth forest. The trees aren't in rows. There's lots and lots of old pines and hardwood trees there, conifers and hardwood trees. They're huge. And there's varied terrain. There's decayed logs about, and different kinds of vegetation on the forest floor. It's a real forest, So, and the main feature of Hartwick Pines was this massive tree, a white pine that they named the Monarch. The Monarch is just incredible. I saw that. It's some 12 feet around in circumference, 155 feet tall. They were estimating at least 325 years old, this tree. And you look up at it and it just goes and goes and goes until you see blue sky up above, and it's just amazing. It was an amazing sight. So I was quite taken with that tree, so tall and majestic. That's the name, Monarch. And now fast forward 10 years or thereabouts, a friend and I were going up north to this a retreat, or I think it was that Song of the Morning ranch up there, and they were having some sort of weekend festival or whatever. And I said, let's go and see, go to Hartwick Pines State Park and look at and see the Monarch. You'll be amazed. You got to see this thing. And so we're walking along the trail, and I come up to where there should be the Monarch, and I find a sign that in effect says, "Here the Monarch once was." And I was astounded. 150, come on, this is what happened. So in something like 1992, a storm had taken the crown of the tree. Lightning strike, winds, who knows what it was. That alone didn't necessarily kill it, but made it vulnerable. And they say about 4 years after that, the tree was officially dead, and they had to take it down. So just imagine that you're counting on, you have this expectation that there's this massive tree, and it's not there. It's like, where did the Monarch go? So this is an expectation unfulfilled. I had this thought in my mind, and for a good 5 years at least, before the Monarch was officially gone and taken away, it lived in my head as existing and real, and I was alive and kicking as far as I was concerned. I had unwittingly developed this attachment to a story about the permanence of this tree. Now, since I've come to not always rely on my mind's story of what is to come. In other words, to not depend on on expectations, basically, right? Now, I'm going to have us put our hands in Haptam. This is a reading from the Buddha Karada Sutta, an auspicious day. These are the Buddha's words. I have heard that on one occasion the Blessed One was staying in Savatthi at Jeta's Grove, Anapadika's monastery. There he addressed the monks. Monks! Yes, Lord, the monks responded. The Blessed One said, monks, I will teach you the summary and exposition of one who has had an auspicious day. Listen and pay close attention. I will speak. You shouldn't chase after the past or place expectations on the future. What is past is left behind. The future is as yet unreached. Whatever quality is present, you clearly see right here, right there. Not taken in, unshaken, that is how you develop the heart. Ardently doing what should be done today for, who knows, tomorrow, death. There is no bargaining with mortality and his mighty horde. Whoever lives thus ardently, relentlessly, both day and night, has truly had an auspicious day. So says the peaceful sage. And how does one place expectations on the future? One gets carried away with the delight of, in the future, I might have such a form. In the future, I might have such a feeling. In the future, I might have such a perception. In the future, I might have such a thought fabrication. Or in the future, I might have such a consciousness. This is called placing expectations on the future. And how does one not place expectations on the future? One does not get carried away with the delight of, in the future I might have such a form, in the future I might have such a feeling, in the future I might have such a perception, in the future I might have such a thought fabrication, or in the future I might have such a consciousness. This is called not placing expectations on the future. And so ends the reading here. Now, that's all fine and good. But how do you cultivate this not being carried away by delight in the future? I say meditation. Okay. And meditation can allow you to train a mind of no expectations. Even if you have a deep-seated expectation, with training, the mind will not at least be stunned by unfulfilled expectations. You just say, expectation unfulfilled, I see. Right? So as you sit upright, counting breaths, developing concentration in your meditation, you're bound to encounter the 5 hindrances, or distractions as I kind of call them also. And so those are sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and remorse, or skeptical doubt. So in your mind, whatever distraction may come up likely falls within one of those categories. Okay? You're thinking of something other than being concentrated on your whatever it is that you're focusing on in your meditation. So these are mental obstacles interfering with tranquility or concentration, samatha. That's the style of meditation where you concentrate on breath or some object one pointedness. So as you count your breath, you're sitting, of course, eyes focused a bit out in front, hands in Jhana Mudra, and counting your breath. You might get distracted. And when you do get distracted, what do? Start over all again, right? So You count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 breaths. 1, 2, 3, what's for dinner? And you say, oh, distraction, go back to counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, that conversation sucked. And then you go back to your breathing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if you're a self-competitive person, you'll get upset and lose, and when you're with losing your concentration and having to seemingly start over all the time, over and over again, you just kind of beat yourself up, saying, I'm never going to be any good at this meditation thing, you know? I'm a poor meditator. The Buddha called people with the untrained mind run-of-the-mill worldlings. No, I'm a run-of-the-mill worldling. So, but what we are doing in meditation literally is practicing life. Practicing life. So distraction is not a failure. If there is any failure to be had, it's to be distracted and carried away by distractions and to not ever recover. So when the bell goes off, you lose track, and the next thing the bell goes on, and the whole time you've been lost in thought, daydreaming. We might count that as maybe not successful meditation. But even then, at the end, you come to, you refocus, and I was distracted. So, the very act of recognizing that you are distracted and then returning to your concentration is a tool you'll use in daily life itself as you practice meditation. So while you're driving and you're lost in thought, you will notice being lost in thought as you train your mind with meditation. And you'll come back to the present. Dwelling on some conversation you wish had gone better, you'll notice dwelling. We become familiar with our mind. We become familiar with these repetitive thoughts and tales and stories we have. And it's sort of like these mental tapes that are constantly repeat on repeat on repeat on repeat. And they become easier to know them as they are, just simply thoughts, feelings, and stories. And we find it easier and easier to let these stories and thoughts and feelings go. We aren't as easily duped by by our untrained mind. So notice this while you're meditating. Your meditation vacillates between trained mind and untrained mind. So when concentration is steady, that is your trained mind working. When you lose concentration, the untrained mind is there, that's acting at that point. But also when you notice you've lost concentration and come back to concentration, when you notice when you've lost concentration and come back to it, counting your breaths, that is your trained mind at work, once again. So noticing distraction, resuming concentration is in itself trained mind. This very effort to return to concentration is the product of a trained mind. So, little pat on your back, so to speak. We all have this capacity in our meditation, in our practice, that to thinking that possibly a good meditation is where you didn't lose track the whole darn time, But does that happen in daily life? Is that the way things go as you're living your day-to-day life? Not necessarily so, right? I went on a retreat some years ago, and it was amazing. 5-day retreat with a Tcheon monk leading the retreat. It was basically on counting our breaths. We did that the whole time. So 5 days silent meditation, silent practice. At the end of it, I was on a high, basically. And I thought, I've achieved, it's like, wow, there's something to this. And went to work. I mean, I was practicing as an ICU nurse at the time. And I went back to work the next day after the retreat. That's not a good idea. So you think this being focused, this feeling of bliss that you might carry with you, that's some higher quality of mind or something like that? I think that it has some capacity to be a meditative opiate of sorts, you know, and that you're not really living in a day-to-day world until you kind of harness what you've gained from this and then apply as you go on with your life. But it was this kind of effect on me. I don't speak a lot anyway, right? I'm not a big talker person. But anyway, being in that state, I was still stuck, in a sense, in this noble, you know, not noble silence, I guess, is the word. And just working in the ICU in noble silence, and just kind of still half stoned from the retreat. And in thinking, you know, I was like catching myself, not really being focused on what, and you know, that's not a good thing in the ICU. So I realized after that, the next time, don't go back to work the same the next day. You know, give yourself some time to not in a sense recover and absorb what has happened in effect, right? So this day-to-day life that we live, this is the enlightened life, like it or not. You know, what is enlightened about it is being aware of Dharma, or being aware of your training and bringing yourself back to this present life and practicing kindness and metta with your fellow man. There's more to Buddhism than this awakening experience. You know, if that occurs, that's great. I mean, it's something that changes you for sure. But afterwards, at least that becomes kind of a story, you know, in your head, and you notice that it has affected you, but live your life and apply what you know. So, if you are a meditation practitioner, right, acknowledge your noble practice. Most people aren't doing this, if you notice. I don't know what the percentage is, but I imagine it's in the high 90s of humans on Earth that don't practice meditation. You know, high 90%. So you're on a spiritual path of your own choosing, daring to train this monkey mind that we have. And that's an unusual quality, an unusual